Imagine a man accused of terrible crimes. Crimes so heinous that they send shivers down your spine. Crimes that make you question the very nature of humanity. Now imagine this man standing in court, claiming he didn't commit these acts. Not because he has amnesia or is trying to deceive the court, but because, according to him, someone else was in control of his actions. Someone else who lived within him, taking over his body and mind. This someone else wasn't a separate person in the physical sense, but another personality residing within him. A completely different identity with its own thoughts, feelings and behaviors. This isn't the start of a horror movie or a plot from a psychological thriller. It's the very real, very unsettling story of Billy Milligan, a man whose life became a case study in the annals of psychology. Billy's case exploded in the late 1970s, capturing the attention of the media and the public alike. He became a media sensation, with newspapers and television channels vying to cover every twist and turn of his story. People were both fascinated and disturbed by the revelations. They couldn't believe that such a condition could exist, let alone manifest in such a dramatic way. See, Billy wasn't your average criminal. His case was unique, unprecedented, and it challenged the very foundations of the legal and mental health systems. He was diagnosed with multiple personality disorder, a condition that was not well understood at the time. Today we refer to it as dissociative identity disorder, a term that better captures the complexity of the condition. It's a rare and complex condition, one that involves the presence of two or more distinct personality states. And Billy, he didn't just have 2 or 3 personalities. He had 24, each one with its own name, age, and set of characteristics. Imagine the shock of the psychiatrist who evaluated him. Imagine the jury's confusion as they tried to make sense of the evidence presented to them. How do you even begin to understand a mind like Billy's? A mind that could switch from one personality to another in the blink of an eye. A mind fragmented, fractured, each piece a different person entirely. Each personality with its own memories, behaviors, and even physical mannerisms. This is the story of those personalities. The story of how they came to be, how they interacted with each other, and how they influenced Billy's actions. The story of the crimes he was accused of, the trial that followed, and the public's reaction to the unfolding drama. But most of all, it's a journey into the human psyche, a journey that takes us to the very edge of what we know about the mind and the self. A journey to the very edge of what we know about the self. A journey that challenges our understanding of identity, consciousness, and the human condition. Before we delve into Billy's life, let's talk about his condition. Dissociative identity disorder, or DID, is a complex psychological condition that is often misunderstood. It is not just about having multiple personalities, it's about the mind's way of coping with severe trauma. Imagine your personality as a mirror, a single unified reflection that represents who you are, whole, reflecting a single image. This is how most people experience their sense of self. Now imagine that mirror shattering into countless pieces. Each piece still reflects, but they show different faces, different personalities. These fragments represent the different identities within one person. That's a simplified way of thinking about dissociative identity disorder. It's a condition where the mind splits into distinct identities, each with its own way of thinking and behaving. Psychologist. It's often a response to extreme trauma, especially in childhood. When a child experiences something overwhelmingly painful, the mind may create separate identities to handle the trauma. The mind, unable to cope with the intense pain, creates separate identities. These identities, or alters, take on different aspects of the person's personality. These identities, called alters, can have their own names, ages, even genders. They can be as different from each other as strangers. They can possess unique skills, memories, and even allergies. One alter might be allergic to something that another alter is not. It's the mind's desperate attempt to protect itself. By creating these separate identities, the mind can compartmentalize the pain and trauma, a way to compartmentalize the pain to survive the unthinkable. This mechanism allows the person to continue functioning despite the trauma. In Billy's case, the alters were his constant companions. They were always there, each taking turns to navigate his life. They took control, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for days. Each alter had its own role and purpose in Billy's life. They navigated the world for him, each in their own way. Some alters were protective, while others were more vulnerable. And as we'll see, some of those ways were dangerous. Certain alters could engage in risky or harmful behaviors, putting Billy in difficult situations. Billy's story begins like a sad song. Born in 1955, his early life was chaotic. His parents' relationship was tumultuous. His stepfather, Chalmer Milligan, was a troubled man. Some reports suggest Chalmer abused Billy. This abuse, if true, could be the key to unlocking the mystery of Billy's fragmented mind. Billy's mother. Imagine being so young, so vulnerable. Imagine experiencing something so horrific that your mind can't process it. That's when the fracturing begins. The alters emerge like shields against the pain. As Billy grew older, his personalities became more distinct. There was David, the protector, Christine, the innocent child, and many others, each playing their part in Billy's fractured world. His school life was difficult. Teachers found him disruptive, withdrawn, different. Little did they know the internal struggle this young boy was enduring. Fast forward to the late 1970s. A series of crimes shocked Ohio State University. Several young women reported being robbed, kidnapped, and raped. Fear gripped the campus. The police were under immense pressure to find the perpetrator.
Witnesses gave conflicting descriptions. Some mentioned a young man with a foreign accent. Others described someone completely different. The investigation hit a wall.
Then came a break. One of the victim's credit cards was used. The trail led to Billy Milligan. When apprehended, Billy acted strangely. His demeanor shifted. His voice changed. He claimed to have no memory of the crimes. He said his name wasn't Billy. This bizarre behavior puzzled the police. Could it be an act, or was something far more complex at play? Billy's odd behavior continued in custody. That's when psychiatrists were called in. What they discovered was beyond anything they'd ever encountered. Billy Milligan didn't have one personality, he had 24.
There was Arthur, the intellectual, a self-proclaimed expert in physics and medicine. Danny, the terrified young boy, afraid of men because of past abuse. Alan, the con artist, manipulative and cunning. And Tommy, the escape artist, able to pick locks and break free.
These personalities, each distinct, were not mere fragments. They were fully formed alters with their own memories, talents, and even physical characteristics. Some were aware of the others, some weren't. It was a chaotic internal world, a jumble of voices vying for control. The psychiatrists had their work cut out for them. Unraveling the mystery of Billy's mind was like navigating a labyrinth. Through extensive interviews and hypnosis, they pieced together the puzzle. They discovered that the crimes were committed by different alters. Each alter had its own distinct personality, memories, and even physical abilities. The complexity of Billy's mind was unlike anything they had ever encountered before. It was as if they were dealing with multiple individuals, each with their own motives and desires, all housed within a single body.
Reagan, a Yugoslavian man with immense strength, was responsible for the robberies. His alter was driven by a sense of power and control, something Billy himself never felt. Reagan's actions were calculated and precise, showcasing a level of criminal expertise that baffled the authorities. It was clear that Reagan operated with a different set of morals and ethics, ones that justified his criminal behavior in his own mind. Adalana, a lesbian, was the one who committed the rapes, driven by a need for intimacy and affection that the other alters denied her. Her actions were a desperate cry for connection, a way to fulfill the emotional void that plagued her existence. Adalana's alter was fragile, yet her actions were devastating, leaving a trail of victims who were as confused by her motives as the psychiatrists were.
But why did these alters commit these crimes? What drove them to such extremes? The answer, the psychiatrists believed, lay in the depths of Billy's traumatic childhood. The alters, created to protect him, had become twisted, their actions a warped reflection of the pain he had endured. Billy's mind had fractured into these distinct personalities as a coping mechanism, each alter taking on a role to shield him from the horrors of his past. The case was complex, unprecedented. It challenged the very definition of sanity and criminal responsibility. Could a person be held accountable for crimes committed by someone else living inside their own mind? The legal and ethical implications were staggering. The psychiatrists were not just unraveling a psychological puzzle, they were also navigating the murky waters of justice and morality. The case of Billy Milligan forced society to confront uncomfortable questions about identity, responsibility, and the human psyche. It was a journey into the unknown, a labyrinth with no clear exit. The trial of Billy Milligan was unlike any other in history. It captivated the nation and sparked fierce debate.
The defense, led by Gary Schweikart, argued that Billy was not guilty by reason of insanity. They presented the diagnosis of multiple personality disorder. They argued that Billy's alters were responsible for the crimes, not Billy himself.
The prosecution, however, argued that Billy was faking it. They claimed he was a master manipulator using his supposed condition to escape justice. The jury was left to decide, was Billy Milligan a cunning criminal or a deeply disturbed individual, a prisoner in his own mind? The weight of the decision was immense. The very nature of free will, responsibility, and the legal system were at stake.